Hello everyone and welcome to CIS 102 week 5. So let's take a look at our agenda today to see some of the key things that we are going to be covering in this week's lecture. So in this week's lecture, I'm going to do a assignment 5 overview. I'm going to talk about your term project, and I'm going to briefly review that for this course. So in this course, you do not have a final exam. Instead of a final exam, you have a term project where you essentially have to design a final website of your choice. It could be a portfolio about you. It could be basically a website kind of giving an overview about the things you enjoy to do, such as your resume, your hobbies, what you're in college for, etc. So the term project is really a fun project that's kind of designed for you to kind of utilize all of the various skills that you've learned throughout this course. Okay, I'm also going to introduce you to HTML5 forms. I'm going to teach you how to use forms and controls of your forms. I'm going to talk about attributes of the form element, attributes that are common to most input elements. I'm also going to teach you how to use buttons, how to use text fields, how to use radio buttons and checkboxes. And I'm also going to teach you how to group controls with field, set, and legion elements. I'm also going to teach you how to use file upload control on your form, and how to align controls with fill, set, and add your header. Okay, you had a home, right? You had a who we are page, you had a news page, right, with the listed items, and you had a contact page that we really didn't work on yet. So pretty much what we're going to spend a lot of time doing today is creating that contact page, which is essentially going to address most of the elements that you have here in this form. Okay. From some of the coding that we started, right? I have my doc type, my HTML, and I have my head, which has my style.css, which is an external style sheet, so I have to make sure I put it in the head. And then I had a div ID main, right? So that div ID main is what my entire page is essentially wrapped around. We talked about the difference between classes and IDs, and as you can see here, I have a paragraph of a class that introduces users to my website. Okay, so if I was to basically redo this, okay, so I could say basically this is a website, okay, about Douglas Tondreau. Okay, I am a freelance web developer looking to continue my education in computer, right, programming. So this is basically kind of, you know, how we wrote a basic paragraph, right? See, these are things that we've kind of have learned in the beginning, right? And if I refresh this and I launch it in Chrome, you'll notice that I have this page here that kind of says a lot of that, right? Welcome to my page, etc. Okay. So one of the other things we learned how to do was the who we are, right? So we design the who we are page, and basically what that essentially looks like is the following, right? So we had an example of the who we are. So we basically linked these two pages together. When I went to news, we created a listed items, okay? So what we actually need to do now is we need to create a contact us form, right? And this form needs to have some of the basic requirements that our page essentially seeks. Because right now, if I click on it, you'll notice that there really isn't any contact us form. So the who we are is there, the news page is there, and if you don't remember how we were able to do this, let me just bring you back inside of that folder, right? So this is my 4th assignment. If I open it, right, you'll notice I have an assignment for a news page and a who we are page. And I can change this to home.html if I really wanted to, and I can change this to a bunch of other different things. So now we have to, and you notice it's who.html, so let me actually open this so you can see, right? So in order to open it, I would just right click, edit with HTML. You notice that it's here, the news, right click, edit with HTML. So now I actually have all 3 pages that I created. My assignment 4.html, which is my main page, my who.html, which is my second page, and then my news.html, which is my third page, right? And you notice all these pages are linked together because in my navigation menu, I've linked assignment 4.html to home, I've linked who.html to who we are, and I've linked news to news.html. So now I have to create contact, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write contact.html, okay? So now that I have that, I need to make sure that I actually go forth and create, sorry about that, and create that contact page, right? So we can actually see it. Excuse me again. Okay. So now that I have assignment for who.html news, right? And in my main page, I've created this contact.html. I want to make sure that in the nav, I go to every single other page and write the same thing, right? Contact.html. In my news, I want to make sure I write contact.html. Right, so now all of these pages will be linked to that contact.html. So if I refresh my page, when I click contact, all right, you notice that it didn't do nothing. So if I refresh it, home, contact, when I click it, right, it doesn't really bring me anywhere. And the main reason that it's not bringing me anywhere is because, yes, I'm pointing it to contact.html, contact.html, contact, but I didn't really create the page yet. Watch what happens when I create it. So I'm going to go to New, File, Save As, make sure it goes into the same exact folder, contact.html. Okay. So now that I've successfully created this page, whenever I click on, right, whenever I click on contact, let me see what's going on here. Let's relaunch this. Run, Chrome, contact. Make sure, file, save as. So we have contact.html, but I don't know why it's not going through. It should. Contact.html. Let's actually create our contact page just to kind of see. So here's one of the tricks I always use. So this, given that this is my main page, I'm going to copy all of the code from my main page. I'm going to paste all of that code, and I'm going to write contact us. Okay, and I'm going to remove all of this unnecessary stuff here, right? Because this is going to be my contact us page. So when I go to Chrome, right, you will notice I now have a contact.html that is linked here, contact us, right? So when I go home, I can see welcome to my page. When I click on who we are. When I click on news, you see that I have the news with the listed and the unlisted, ordered list and unordered list. When I click contact, you notice that I am here in the contact us section, okay? So now what I have to do is I have to create a form, okay? So a form is actually pretty cool because what a form allows for you to do as a user is it allows for you to essentially give the user a section of your page to actually put information in, okay? And if you don't remember how to create a form, or if you don't know how to, it's perfectly fine, right? One of the things we could do, we could actually go to w3schools.com. Okay, let me just Google it, W3 Schools form, okay? And if you go to W3 School, it's going to show you exactly the basics of creating a form. And all we need to have here, it shows us is just form, right? So we'll start off with some of the basic examples that W3 Schools provided us with. And we're just going to copy this. Okay. And we're simply going to paste it. Okay. And let me just do this here. And the tab don't make a difference. I only do it for clarity so people can see. Okay, so now that I have this, when I run my page, you will notice that I have a first name and a last name, right? Where the user can come in, they can write their first name and they can write their last name, right? Pretty cool. But the form doesn't really do much yet. Our form is not going to do much because we didn't specify what we would like for the form to do yet, okay? So these are the basic elements of creating a form. You need to have an open form tag and a closed form tag. So I'm going to remove this because we're going to make our form a little bit more sophisticated than that, because we're going to actually add functionality to our form a little bit to make it do some pretty cool and nifty things, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap my form in a div. So I'm going to do div class. Let's do ID. Div ID equals form. Okay. And remember, the reason you put stuff in a div is because it puts it in a container. And inside of that container, you can kind of control the object a little bit better, so to speak. Okay, so now I have my div. Okay, and I'm going to give my form name equals, I'm going to name it my first form. Okay, and again, this is all for server purposes. We're not going to do much with it now. Then we're going to have an action that is going to equal absolutely nothing for now. And we're going to have a method that is, we'll leave the method out for now. All right, actually we'll put it. So method equals post. And again, don't worry about that for now, and all of that has to do with server purposes. So post allows you to post information, get allows for you to get information, but we'll pretty much come back to that, okay? So if you take a look at your assignment, one of the first things you have to do is you have to have a text field with the name and ID value of first name, okay? So let's actually do that, okay? So what we're going to basically do is exactly what W3 Schools told us to do. We're going to do a paragraph. We're going to write enter your first name, okay? And underneath, so right now, let's take a look at what we have, right? So if I run this, Chrome, right, I have enter your first name, right? Because I just wrote a paragraph. I didn't really write anything fancy schmancy, just a paragraph. So underneath this, if I write input, so input is what generates and creates that box that allows the user to input information. Input type equals text. Why? Because the type of information the user is going to put in here is going to be text, and we're going to get into the difference between that. Then we're going to write name equals, we'll just do first name, okay? And we're going to leave it at that, okay? And we're going to do the same thing for last name. So instead of first, we're going to write last. And then here, we're going to do last, okay? And all of the camel case stuff we'll go over as the class goes on, and why we have capitals and no capitals, etc. All right? And again, it's all because of server purposes, which we'll get into. But for now, I just want you to understand the basic concepts, okay? So now I can come in and I can write my first name, Douglas, okay? Then I can write my last name in here, Tandra. All right, pretty cool, pretty cool. All right, I can write a few things that I would like to write, okay? So now let's continue with some of the things that the assignment is kind of asking for us to do. Again, in your case, you're going to have to do a first name and a last name, okay? And then you have to do one with professor, okay? So now that we have our form, things are starting to really take effect. But we're missing a key component, right? And that is a button where the user can actually submit that form or that information. So to do that, we actually have to specify what that button is going to look like and do. So to create that button, we're going to again do input type equals submit. We're going to give the button a name of S button, which stands for submit button. Well, let's actually write the whole thing out. Submit button. And then we're going to give it a value of submit. Okay, so that's basically all there is to creating a submit button. Okay, and if we wanted to, we could even create a reset button. So let's actually take a look at this. Okay, so now I have a submit button that I just created, right? And if you kind of said, well, I don't really remember how to do any of that, if you go to the HTML form, it actually shows you exactly how to do a lot of that. So we're going to learn how to do that, right? Submit button. So the submit button, input type submit, defines a button for submitting the form to a form handler. Okay, so this is basically kind of the same exact thing that we did here. Okay, and if you want to have a reset button, we can have that as well. Let's actually create that. So if we wanted a reset button, okay, all we would have to do is the same exact thing. Instead of submit, we would write reset, reset, reset. I don't know if reset works. I think we might have to do cancel, but let's take a look. Ta-da! See, so if I write DDD, reset, right, it resets and clears everything for me, okay? So this is basically how you can have a submit button and a reset button in case you happen to make a little mistake, okay? So before we continue, let's take a look at what our form is really starting to look like, right? So right now I have a simple form that allows the users to enter their first name, enter their last name. They can put information in here to do whatever it is that they would like for the form to do, okay? So that is one of the first components, okay? So now let's talk about radio buttons and what radio buttons can do. So radio buttons are those little buttons that allows for the user to check or specify exactly what they would like to check or specify based on what they're looking for in the form. So to create a radio button, again, we're going to do the same thing that we did. We're going to write a paragraph, and we're going to say, please help us. Let's put in weird capitals. Please help us improve our page. Let's say by providing feedback. And since we left the others open, let's see what it'll look like. Let's kind of do it, okay? To do a radio button, it's the same exact thing. We're going to do input type, okay, equals radio. Then we're going to do name equals message because that's kind of what they're going to put. We could put text too. Then value, the value is going to be a question. And we're going to write question. Then we're going to create a line break to create some space because we're going to have a few of the radio buttons here, so to speak, right? So first one's question. The next one's going to be comment. Concerns. Okay. So now that we've created this, let's actually see what this will look like, right? So here we have, okay, so I do have to close the paragraph so it can, so when you don't close the paragraph, it kind of keeps everything on the same page. So once you close the element, that will fix that, right? So we have, please help us improve our page by providing feedback. So the user can say, I have a question, comments, or concerns, okay? However, once the user writes that, we're going to need a place for them to write and specify exactly what they have a comment or question about, right? So we need to basically create a section for text area where they can write information, but we'll get into that. Now that we know how to create radio buttons, let's learn how to create checkbox buttons. Let's say the user wants us to contact them. So how are we going to go about contacting our users? Again, same philosophy. Okay, we can say, how would you like to be contacted? So let's do this. How would you like to be contacted? And let's do the same thing. Input type equals check box. Name equals radio message. Let's do value equals email. And then let's say email is the first way they would like to be contacted. Then we're going to do a line break similar to what we did before, because we want to make sure that everything's not jumbled up in the same exact way. Okay? So we'll do email, text message, phone call, or social media, because a lot of people have different preferences. Right? So instead of email here, we'll do TXT, MSG. We'll do phone. Phone call. And then here we'll do social. Okay. So here we are. Okay. So when you refresh this, all right, you will notice that we now have checkboxes where the user can specify how they would like to be contacted. Okay. So now let's create a section where the user can actually write information, right? They have a question or whatever. So we want to add that to the form where they have a little text area where they can specify exactly what they essentially have questions on. Okay, so to create that in your form, we would have to basically do P, please enter your feedback or message. And then we could do P, text area, rows equals 5, columns equals 50, name equals question. All right, and then we can close that text area. Then we could just do a line break here. Okay. And we could save this, and then we could refresh, right? So now the user can actually come in and say, oh, I have a question. How would you like to be contacted? Text message. And here's the information that I would like to enter, okay? So the user can actually come in here and specify exactly what's going on and what they would like information on, okay? So now, we want to style this page a little bit and make it look more like a form that a user can utilize, right? And we know we can style this nice and easy because we created a divider. So all of this is wrapped up in a div, and that div has an ID of form, right? So given that we already have a CSS page, all we have to do is open up our CSS, okay, and make the edits to that particular form. So we're going to call on that form by looking at the ID that we've assigned it. We have a div ID of forms to call on that ID. If you guys remember, IDs are hashtags, # ID form. Okay. And then we could do a border, okay, of 1 pixel solid. Let's do black. Let's see if that works before we get too excited. Nope, so that didn't work. Let's continue. 1 pixel solid. Let's see here why that didn't go through. Style. Okay, let's see here. So we wrote 1 pixel solid black. That didn't go through. I think it's this dash. Let's remove that dash. There we go, right? So you see that it went through now. Let's actually remove the whole solid black thing. Let's do hashtag 1, 2, 3. Okay, so solid, here is the color. If you don't remember the color, again, you can look most of this stuff up. Okay, so let's do a background color of white. Again, let's just do hashtag 000. Okay, let's specify the width that we want the form to take. Let's do a width of 50. Let's do 75% of the page, and let's center the form by doing a margin 0 auto. Let's take a look at what we have so far. Okay. Oops, we don't want the background to be black, so that's what caused that. Yeah, we don't want 0,0,0,0's black. Let's do this one. We can leave the border as, yeah, well, let's take a look first. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I made the line white because FF is the hexadecimal for white. We definitely don't want it to be, so I put it back as black, right? So you could tell that our form is slowly but surely coming together, okay? So let me do a few more things to that form, and as you can tell when I click submit, my form actually kind of goes somewhere, right? Even though it doesn't show you where it's going, but it's actually reading as if it's physically really going somewhere, right? So let me show you how to do one last thing on this form, so that way you guys can know how to do it, right? And then one of the things I'm going to show you is how to create an options section, and then I'm going to show you how to create a file upload section. Okay, so let's continue to add to our form. So to create an options section, okay, all we have to do is the following. Okay, we're going to do P which of the following search engines do you most often use? Then we could do select name equals engine. Then we could just do option, right? Value equals Bing. Then we could do Bing. And then we can close the option, right? And then we want to make sure we close that select. Then we're going to give it a line break, okay? We obviously want to create more than just Bing. So let's take a look here. So let's do Yahoo. Right? I don't know if anyone uses this anymore. Ask. And lastly, the grandfather of them all. Okay. This is just to kind of show you how you can continue to add more elements to your form. Okay. So when I come in here and I refresh, right? Continue, right? I have which of the following search engines do you most often use? And the user can specify Bing, Yahoo, Ask, or Google, and submit, right? So, just to kind of get some survey information out of that particular user. So you could use that as well, okay? So now let's take a look at how we can create a file upload, right? If the user wanted to upload some information to us, okay? Please upload a document you would like to share. And then we can basically come in here. Uploading's easy, so we just do input type equals file. So I put the wrong thing. Name equals, again, the names and stuff don't really matter. You can name them whatever you want. You just have to remember what they are. And when we get deeper into this, I will explain what all of this stuff means. But for now, I just want you to kind of see how to create a basic form, right? So now that I have this, right, a user can actually come in, they can click choose, and this menu thing will pop up where they can actually upload whatever it is they would like to upload. Let me actually cut this and bring it up here. Okay. Pretty cool. So there's a lot of pretty cool things that you can kind of do to create the page that you would most likely like to create. And as you can tell, right, my form is kind of breaking off of my main page because it's getting a little bit too long and it's taking up a lot of space that I didn't specify that I would like for it to not take. Let me actually see what I didn't close that's causing that. Because it shouldn't be off the page. Move that. But yeah, you guys can play around with this to figure out why it's off the page. I probably didn't close something somewhere. I think that's why it's doing that, so to speak. Shouldn't, but it is. All right, so that's basically some of the key things that I kind of want you to do for this week's assignment, right? So I want you to have a form, and in that form, to have all of these key things to kind of show me that you know how to create the form, okay? And lastly, I don't want to just be able to hit the submit button, right? Right now, if I hit the submit button, my form just goes through, which is problematic. So to fix that, we have to specify certain elements that are required as part of the form. So if I come in here, okay, and I have certain things that are required, like for example, I don't want these to be able to submit the form without writing their first name. So all I would have to do is come in here and write required required, last name. I would have to write required, right? So once I write that, the user cannot submit the form without actually filling in information. So let's take a look, see if I'm right. Okay, when I come in, I hit submit, you will notice that please fill out this section. So once I put it in, if I hit submit, oops, I need to fill this section out too. So required allows for me to basically require the user to write or put information in certain sections or certain element of their page. Okay.